we made a decision that the most important thing for us to do in the marketplace was to buy more deals, and even in the rougher times. So that's what we're doing. Instead, we put our money in making sure the folks that need that HVAC system, they can get approved. We just wanted to make sure they could get approved, and that we could serve the lower FICO scores and the folks that a lot of times those are the people that need it the most.
Chad Peterman here, and you are listening to Can't Stop the Growth, a platform for leaders and teams to grow and thrive. We highlight the importance of personal development, pursuing greatness, and always chasing your potential. Let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Can't Stop the Growth. I'm your host, and today we have a very special episode with our sponsor for the show, Goodleap. We've got Eric from Goodleap, and then our guest, who many of you know if you've listened to really any podcast out there, is Mr. Ken Goodrich. So we'd like to welcome both of them to the show. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you. Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, we'll kick it off. Ken, I don't know how deep of a background we'll need to give because I know that most people know who you are, but why don't we start off by maybe just giving a little bit of background into kind of your story and what you're working on today.
Well, I like yourself, I was enslaved in the family business at a very young age and held the flashlight from my dad and in the HVAC space. And over the years, I went through the challenges of learning how to run a business and fighting the fight and getting involved in the best practice groups and getting deeper and deeper involved in the community of the industry and educating myself, and started buying and selling the companies. I did my first one in 1997. I had 3 locations, and I sold them to ARS back then. And then over the course of time, I'm on my 7th transaction, of which I've built and sold these companies and sold them in this space. So I've had some unique experiences in the industry that most guys who get into this kind of business don't get to have, which is, I sold businesses very early, and I got to be surrounded by some business people who knew a lot of things that I didn't know, mostly in terms of mergers and acquisitions, running scaled operations, multi-branch locations, managing capital, investor relations, investors, things like that most of us as HVAC tradesmen don't really get to experience much. So I was fortunate there. And over the course of the time, I've learned those new skills, taken those new skills, and started acquiring and growing companies. My last deal was a company called Gettle, Air Conditioning and Plumbing, of which I bought in 2013, maybe I always say days away from them shutting the doors, and successfully built them up over time. And I've had 2 exits with the company so far. And the company still lives on today, and I'm the chairman of the board. Outside of that, I decided to go try another field. So some partners and I are rolling up the standby generator and battery business. We currently have 3 locations, Texas and Florida, and we're going to roll up that space throughout the Gulf states. That's what we're working on today, and always continually keeping my eye and my input on Gettle to help it realize its mission to Gettleize the nation.
Awesome stuff. And I know over our conversations, I've learned a ton from you, Ken, probably, indirectly, and then, in the conversations that we've got to have and things of that nature. So really appreciate you being on here, and always a lot to learn. Eric, why don't you give us a little bit of your background and maybe a little bit of background on Goodleap? I know Ken and I both in our companies use Goodleap quite often. I've actually seen quite a few. It's hot here, so I've seen quite a few deals already rolling across this morning. So give us a little bit of your background.
Sure. I've been in the business about 25 years, so I've seen it all. I've seen all of you guys grow over time. So when I first got into the business, I got into the business teaching contractors to fill out a truth in lending box, basically. So, and they had to round the right way in the home, and nobody used financing because it was way too hard. So I put together some of the biggest programs in the nation. Worked with GE Capital and put together some really large programs at one time that I'm sure all of you guys use. I know Ken used quite a bit back in the GE Capital days. And about 5 years ago, joined Goodleap. Goodleap isn't a new company. They've been around since 2003. They started in the mortgage business, then became a contractor, building a large solar company, Paramount Solar. They built it to about 700 installs a month. Sold that to Tesla. The management team then went over and ran Solar City for a long time, which was, Tesla owns it now, but it was Solar City at the time. Sold that off, grew that business to about 17,000 installs a month. And then it was time for them. Their contracts ran out. They took a little bit of time and then said, what's next in the industry? And the owners there decided to write a finance company. I got recruited sometime after that to run the home improvement division. So started by writing a direct pay program on the solar side and then helped develop the entire home improvement division.
So I think to kind of kick us off here, because I think this is an interesting topic, and I'm sure that everybody has some perspective on it. I think financing for, at least I've been in the business for, almost 13 years. I feel like financing was kind of that new thing. Even then, it was like, oh, yeah, you ought to use this. And I felt like it was always used as like, if someone couldn't afford something, then we'd offer them financing. How have you kind of seen, I guess, and maybe this is for both of you, kind of seen financing change into kind of a tool that people can use? And then also, what are you seeing from, or like what's been successful? What are you seeing from like the top people and how they're using it and how they're really viewing it? Because I talk to so many people still that are like, well, yeah, I mean, we just offer them the price, and then if they can't pay for it, then we'll offer them financing to pay for that. What are you guys seeing out there? I guess, Ken, if you want to go first, and then Eric, kind of what you're seeing as well.
I want to say this. It still amazes me how many contractors do not deploy financing. It's like, and I still amazes me how many contractors don't use flat rate pricing too. But, I can't even believe that they don't deploy financing. I literally started financing in 1986. I went to a little home finance company buddy I knew and said, hey, will you finance air conditioners for me? And it took a little longer. It wasn't the fintech stuff, but I was doing it. And then I don't even know how you operate one of these businesses without financing. I just don't even know how it's done. But since then, we have gone at it offering payment first. We rarely even talk about the price, the total price of the job, and we'll disclose it obviously. But really, it's about the payment, and we're discussing to the customer the different options that we're giving on the equipment by the increase in the payment. But that's not what you asked me. So what did you actually ask me?
No, I think that's perfect. I mean, that speaks to, where it was and unfortunately where it still is, and where I think we're looking to get contractors over that hill of like, hey, this is probably your most powerful tool that you have. Not everybody's got $15,000-$20,000 laying around for maybe something that they didn't even expect to happen. What are you kind of seeing, Eric, on your end?
Oh yeah, I agree with you guys 110%. I'm still shocked to this day, not only how many contractors don't offer financing, but how many contractors get it wrong on a regular basis, and they don't understand the consumer themselves and what the consumer needs. A lot of contractors tend to put their own preconceived notions on a customer. I would never finance something for 10 years, or I would never finance it for 15 years. So why would I offer a payment like that or anything else? There's a tendency to instead of doing the same thing for each customer and not prejudging the customer, there's a tendency to walk into each home and think that it's a different experience for every single person instead of just going in and consistently and methodically offering it across the board. And I think that's what I see. I see a lot of contractors out there. To your point, Ken just talked about the generator business. I think it's a great business to get in because I just had a generator guy come out and he said, well, we got financing if you want it. That's the way a lot of them tend to offer it. Hey, well, I've got it.
Yeah. And let me jump in on that. Let me say this. The first thing that we did when we bought the first generator company is we got financing in place. And we just started offering payments. We don't talk about how much the generator is. That's not our first conversation. And it doubled the closing average, doubled it, just by offering the financing, but just by talking about the payment. By the way, let me throw this at you too. One of the things I do see where contractors go wrong in financing is, okay, so they hear podcasts like this. Okay, we're going to get financing. The first thing they do is jump out and go, 12 months saves cash or 24 months or all this stuff, these very expensive plans, and think that that really is an incentive. I have not found that to be a huge incentive for customers to buy, and we rarely use it. As a matter of fact, we control our plans very tightly, and we have a metric. We try to keep our discount points below 2 points. So sometimes we'll have to take a fat discount point because of some financing deal we had to do, but for the most part, we're managing that piece of the business. And just I wanted to say that because so many guys get discouraged by financing because they let their sales guys go wild and give away all these, 12 months, 24 months, same as cash stuff that costs them 10, 12 points, and they don't make any money. I literally have seen a business in Phoenix, Arizona that didn't make money in July because the sales guys went crazy and gave all the 12-month no financing away, and the cost of it just eroded the margin.
Yeah. I mean, I learned the hard way because that was when I first got into the financing, it was like, well, everything, I mean, no one's going to want to pay any interest. So I got to offer and I got to get a low payment. So I got to offer 0% for the 5 years or whatever it is, which was costing you like 18%. And it's, because they somehow worked out a deal, the distributor worked out a deal with the finance company. And where we've always positioned it, or, at least positioned it for our team, is that yes, we keep a very tight, we only offer like 3 different plans. And those are the only 3 you can offer. So to Ken's point, you can keep control of those costs. But it's also that most people in America have a credit card payment. And last time I checked, that credit card interest rate is a hell of a lot higher than what we're typically offering. 11.99 looks a hell of a lot better than 30% or whatever it is.
Hey, you know how this story I told where the HVAC shop didn't make money in July in Phoenix because the financing points, you know how I know that story? Because it was me. I lived that one. And this is after this was just within the last 7-8 years. And that was a wake-up call. You cannot be in the business without financing. You cannot. And the point here is you have to manage it. It's a great tool. It'll drive your business revenue up. It'll increase your closing average. It's a great tool to have, but like any other great tool, the doors swing both ways. You got to manage it.
Yeah, you should really, your fixed rate standard installment loans over time should be 70 to 80% of your total business. The no interest, no payments, those are only used for your cash customers. And that's just Larry Judson from K Designers, a large window company years ago, coined a phrase to me at dinner. He said that all my customers suffer from cash separation anxiety, and it's my job to cure them. So he says nobody likes to write a big check. He said, so that's why I use financing. I use it as my cure for that cash separation anxiety. And remember, even the folks that have the cash don't like to write a check. I don't remember the last time my wife, every time we go anywhere, she never wants to write a check for anything. She always wants, oh, you have 12 months same as cash? That's fine. I'll take it out of this later, or I'll move it over here, or I'll do whatever. That's for your cash customers. So if you're going to do a 12-month, that should be a mix, and you should blend the fees from a no dealer fee, fixed rate, long-term loan for your payment customers, and the 20% to 30%, depending upon the market you're in. Obviously, if it's Bellevue, Washington, or it's some area that's more affluent, you might get a few more no interest, no pays, but it shouldn't be any more than 30% of your mix. And most parts in the country should be 20% or less.
You know what I do too is we add financing to every job, or we add the discount points to every job as a cost in our flat rate price. So everybody's got to understand that too. It costs money to use financing. There's a discount points, 3 to 5, whatever percent it is, depending on the plan, and you have to build it in your price. Don't take a lesser margin because you're financing. You have to build the cost in. It's a cost.
Yeah, I think there's also a lot of room where most people, I think, in the business, associate financing with a new, HVAC system. To me, I found out there's a lot of room in plumbing, electrical, all of these other services as you build options for your customers. And, the top option is the, panel replacement with the rewire and the new devices and all of this. To me, if you want to see those, making those big jobs as opposed to just the outlet repair more manageable, you can use financing to hopefully help your customers into getting everything fixed at one time so they don't have an issue.
It still, like I said, amazes me how many salespeople don't realize that a lot of times people are just looking for an ability or an outlet or a reason to say yes. They always think the customer's looking for a reason to say no. So, but if you can't give them a low monthly payment and a reason to say yes, I mean, I learned from a lot of really large salespeople years ago. Really the rule was offer the lowest monthly payment so that you can precondition the customer that it's affordable upfront. And I think Ken nailed it. I mean, you walk in and go, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, we can get this for you for as little as $150 a month or $160 a month, or, 12 months, no interest, no payments. If you just want to use somebody else's money for a brief period of time, and pay it off when you get your tax return or whatever. And so, I mean, that's the whole idea of financing, is it allows people the option so they don't have to put it on that 20% or 28% credit card.
Where I think, as we're talking out loud about it right now, where I think that we're an opportunity that we're not doing well with, that Gettle is, we're not offering financing on larger repairs. I don't think, now that I just listened to it again, I'm thinking, man, what a huge opportunity that we're missing with that. What's the lowest amount you'll finance?
Depends upon where in the country, wherever legally they'll let us, $1,000 to $2,000.
Okay. So you think about that, we're tracking our win rate on every job and our close rate. And, there's a percentage of those people who just, like Chad said, didn't expect any sort of bill today, any sort of major bill. And for some people, $1,000, $2,000 is a bill, right? And I would suggest, and as soon as we get done here, I'm going to suggest to our management team at Gettle is, hey, why don't we start leading with financing for jobs over $1,000, and you just start with the payment. What is the payment on $1,000?
Well, for us, I mean, we don't look at a dollar amount. So whatever factor you choose, if you choose a $10,000 job, I mean, it's going to be, it's going to be $20 a month or something like that.
Another thing you got to think about is the financing. If you get somebody used to the financing, so let's say you go in, you do a repair. Let's say you need a new coil and it's a $2,800 job. I'm just making up numbers, right? And you finance it, okay, and they're used to getting the payment, and you have your relationship building. I think it would also aid in when it's time to upgrade the system for them to make the sale with you and with financing. Wouldn't you agree?
I think it's also a way, to your point, to get them to buy the unit. A lot of times people are afraid whether or not they're going to get approved because maybe they got declined just recently because they're in the high 600s or something, and everybody's expecting higher FICO scores. So they're applying and they're like, yeah, well, I'll try for the repair. But say you get approved for, $25,000. Now you've got a replacement that you can put in place too for the customer, because it really needs to be replaced. It shouldn't be repaired because, it's a 20-year-old unit or whatever else you're just band-aiding together. So I think that's a great plan, because that would actually, then you could counter with the customer and say, yeah, well, you actually do qualify for enough to replace this, and I would recommend replacing this unit.
Hey, Chad, are you tracking approval rates per branch?
Yeah, so we track it per branch on the approval rates. We've seen a little bit of a jump on declines, but I think that's probably pretty standard. I think we're seeing maybe the 2 to 3% jump on declines. I don't know, Eric. What are you guys seeing as far as, obviously you're looking at a lot more data that I'm looking at?
Yeah, the average FICO score, anything under 700 is dropping pretty good right now. Inflation seems to be catching up with a lot of those customers. Those folks that were just getting by. A buddy of mine that's works with the largest second look lender in the country. He says as inflation and gas prices especially go, that's when people decide not to make their payment. So even things as little as gas prices going up in those areas can affect them. So imagine what's going on with just inflation overall right now. So a lot of those folks are getting hit. So we see the folks in the lower 700, we see a lot of those FICO scores dropping, as much as 15%. And then the folks, over 750 or so that just care about their credit no matter what, seem to go, be flat or go up, as time goes on. It's really just the folks that are, I think, living more paycheck to paycheck that you're seeing the drop. And you're seeing them start to miss payments too. And that's where they get declined. So they're in the 650s or whatever else, and suddenly they've missed 2 installment payments or 1 mortgage payment and something else. And it shows some sort of a steady decline. You can definitely see inflation hitting the customers. I mean, I can see it just across through our data.
But look, that's a very important metric, right? That metric right there, approval rates. And it kind of tells you where to put your marketing, right? What direction are you going to start marketing if the approval rates start dropping? What neighborhoods? And then when you get scaled and when you're talking some really big numbers, that is a lever you can pull, both in your negotiation with your provider, your fintech provider, and just managing your sales department.
Yeah, and that's why we're growing at 380% a year right now. It's mainly just approval rates. I mean, we're not the low cost provider. We're competitive, but we're definitely not the low cost provider. We're not just a rate sheet. We made a decision that the most important thing for us to do in the marketplace was to buy more deals, and even in the rougher times. So that's what we're doing. Instead, we put our money in making sure the folks that need that HVAC system, they can get approved. We just wanted to make sure they could get approved, and that we could serve the lower FICO scores and the folks that a lot of times those are the people that need it the most. So that's what we did. And instead, we just put a lot into our servicing team and collections and folks to make sure that we stay on top of it so that we always take care of our investors, so that we can do it responsibly. So it's just important to us to do it, but do it in a responsible way. And that's where we're winning. And I think that's why both of your teams have chosen us. I mean, that's the choice we made. It's not easy because my sales team has to do a math equation with every contractor. And we just talked about a lot of them won't even offer financing. Imagine how many of them won't even do the math with you to figure out what their net margin is per job and if it makes sense for them to pay the difference in dealer fee, So that's a even greater equation. So, hats off to my sales team because they have to do that every day. And it's a much tougher talk, which is probably why we're servicing most of the larger contractors in the space, because they'll actually sit down and have that talk, where a lot of the smaller and medium guys just won't. They just look at a rate sheet and they walk away.
I think it's interesting too. I think maybe Ken brought this up is, kind of conditioning your customers to understand that this business is similar. You don't go and buy a car and they tell you the full price. You go into the car lot and you look for the payment that's going to fit in your monthly budget, because a car is understood to be probably more than you're going to want to pay cash for. And so for us, we've done a number of things. Again, it's presenting every system with, payments. Here's what this one costs. Here's what that one costs. Another thing that we've done, which GoodLeap has been very helpful in, is getting customers pre-approved, where, even before we enter the home, they're under the assumption that, oh yeah, this is how I buy HVAC equipment. And I think that's been huge for us. I don't know, Ken, are you doing anything on that end of things with pre-approvals and, I guess, furthering the conditioning of the customer?
Well, it's our whole sales process, right? When the technician goes out, has a conversation with the customer about the system, one of the things they say most of our customers enjoy our no cost financing program or no fee, and it's a easy approval. And I can do it right here on the iPad before you talk to the salesman or the manager. Why don't I just run it really quick and see where you're at? You'll know, and doesn't ding your credit. So they'll take an app right there, and as soon as they get the approval, the sales department gets the notice back in the office, and then game on, and then the process starts. So yeah, pre-approval is an extreme important part of the whole sales process. And we have not done this yet, but I know there's some contractors out there that get a soft credit pull on their whole schedule every morning. Have you seen that happen?
We actually do a soft pull. So if they wanted to do that, they could do that through our platform. We do a soft pull all the way up until funding. So with a 6 months window, so you've got a full window, approval window, and we don't actually hit their credit until they fund the job. So until you finish install and fund a job, that's when we hit their credit. So yeah, you could do that on our platform all day long if you wanted.
What I always imagine though is if we could get the API and have the Titan schedule match up with the software that does a soft pull, and then your schedule has a different color for people who are pre-approved on your list, that certainly would help you refine your day's work, right?
Yeah, you could actually, if you've got the email of the customer, you can actually generate a link in our system that sends an app directly with your emails each morning to the customer. So when you say, hey, your technician's going to be by between X and X, you could actually send a link right in there. If you want to get pre-approved, get it pre-approved now too. So you can generate a unique link for that particular customer and send it out for each one of those jobs.
Yeah, we send it out the night before. So like when they get their in Service Titan, when they get their reminder, hey, you have an appointment tomorrow, it goes along with that. Hey, if you'd like to go ahead and save some time, you can go ahead and get pre-approved there, and then it auto generates a tag on that customer that they've been pre-approved. So whoever's going out there knows that they've been pre-approved on our end.
Are you? What's the take rate on that?
It's very, very high. If I can get them, you're talking about will the customer do it? So on that side, I was more so on the closing rate. It's like 95% on those deals. Now, will the customer do it? We usually get probably, I'd say it's less than 50%, but it's still a pretty good percentage. And we're always looking at are there other ways that we can, try to get this done so that we know. Because to your point, it refines your day of work. If you already know that a customer's pre-approved, well, obviously we want to get out to that customer because, well, they're serious about buying.
Yeah, I think now that we're talking about this, I would suggest that in the initial script for when the customer calls in, you find a way to discuss financing. Just let them know, and that's another place where we probably could do better. Customer calls in. Just, as a courtesy, I want to remind you that we do have financing, and we'll send you the link into your text when the technician's coming out, just to get the take rate up, right? But close to 50% is a win, right? You can't argue with that.
And a lot of people put links on their website too. And I think anybody who does that, the one thing you'll realize that if you do have a link on your website for pre-approvals, the folks that are really skittish and afraid of whether they're going to be approved because they've been turned down, they have a tendency to hit that site. So you'll see much lower FICO score averages come across your web link from your web page than almost anything else. And those are folks just scouting for approvals to get the deal done oftentimes. So you'll see much lower ones. That's even a softer way. Hey, you can get pre-approved on our website kind of a thing. If you're so unsure, if they, as a last ditch, if someone feels just like, I'm not sure if I can afford this, they can go on there. And most websites, like I said, web links that we have, we track FICO scores for all of them and everything like that. And most of the time the average is quite a bit lower on those links.
What's best in class in terms of some of these metrics with your customers?
Best in class in my metrics that I see from contractors and what they do?
Yeah, meaning, I don't know what you would be tracking, but a percentage of business converted to financing, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so we can't convert. We can't do that one. We can help you do that one though. We can't do them. We're total data nerds. We actually collect a little bit more on our app than most people do on their app. So you probably have to spend an extra 10 seconds to 20 seconds filling out our app because we ask for a couple things that most finance companies don't, and that's just so we have that data for you. We actually collect the type of equipment, the type of job, what's being installed. So we actually can tell you what is being financed and what isn't being financed overall. And we can do it all the way down to the salesperson level. So we can actually tell you who's financing, if they're using other finance companies first, because we can see whether those ones are being pulled first. We can see their average FICO. So sometimes if they're only using us and their average FICO is really low, that means they're not offering it up front. You have a salesperson that's waiting for the customer to ask because you're going to have a lower FICO score. If you're waiting for a customer to ask, then you're going to have if they consistently present financing correctly. So there's a lot of metrics like that. I think, honestly, Ken, I think best in class is just that I've ever seen in the industry. There's a few places that do it. I mean, Renault by Anderson does it every single day. If you look at those guys, if you look at the groups like the Essler Group and the Moore Group and people like that, I mean, just look at their advertisements and look how they kill it every day. I mean, Essler Group's going to do what, 1.5 bill, I think, next year.
What would you call a good percentage financed of your total revenue in an HVAC shop, for instance?
I'd say you should be 70% plus.
Yeah. Ken, I know we were last year, I don't know what the number is this year, we were running, I think, 85% of all of our HVAC install work was financed.
Yeah, I think we're somewhere around there.
Yeah, you should be 70% plus. I mean, the goal should be to finance as much as you can because you're going to have a 20% higher ticket overall if you do. So all the sales guys that raise their hand just waiting for cash, they're making a mistake because really they're just cutting into their own commissions and everything else as well because they have a chance to get a 20% larger job per transaction if they're using financing. I mean, it's just the stats. It's 20% larger on whole. People are willing to, it's just like a car lot. I think you mentioned earlier, car lot. People go into car, there's a reason they only talk payment. They want to get you on all the accessories and everything else too, right? They want to upgrade that car and get you into something they're going to make more margin on. And people are willing to do it because for $25 a month, they'll do it. They're just not going to do it if it's $1,000 or $2,000 more,
Absolutely. Well, I know we're up against time, and I know everybody's busy. I think a lot of good information in here as it relates to consumer financing and how it can grow your business and the things that you should be focused on. A lot of good strategies, a lot of good insights into how this can really help your business. I know it's helped mine. I'm positive that it's helped Ken's as well. Good Leap, obviously a huge partner for both of us and someone that if you're interested in learning more, they've got a ton of great people over there that can help. Special shout out to Miss Gail, who always helps our guys out and is always there to make sure that we have what we need. But can't thank you guys both enough for spending a little bit of time with me. I know I learned a little bit and have a couple of things. One being making sure that our call center is talking about financing when we pick up the phone. Again, can't thank you guys enough. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform. Don't forget to leave us a review. Remember, growth is a journey. It's all about taking small steps forward every single day. Keep pushing yourself, embracing new challenges, and never stop striving for progress. Until next time, keep growing, keep learning, and remember, you can't stop the growth. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to get connected, you can find me at chadmpeterman.com. To see what our team's up to, you can visit petermanbros.com. As always, keep growing out there.